Hello. Good morning, everyone. Dear colleagues, dear guests, welcome to the 7th Regional TB Symposium and the second time in Kyrgyz Republic. It's a special honor to see you all here, and we take pride to host it in Bishkek the second time now. I would like to welcome you and give the floor to Deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Murzaliev, to welcome. But before that, I would ask everyone, please have your phones on silent. For your attention, there are 2 screens in Russian and English languages. So choosing your seats to be more convenient to the screen that you prefer, to the language that you prefer. And all the materials will be available online in both languages, so you will receive a follow-up electronic copy of all the information. So thank you again and welcome to the symposium. And Amangel Dijoldoshbekovich, если можно. Спасибо.
Саламатсыздарбы, урматтуу кесиптештер, урматтуу коноктор, урматтуу
The speaker is speaking in the Kyrgyz language, which is not one of the languages of this conference. Good morning, dear colleagues, dear guests, dear participants of today's symposium. With your permission, I would like to welcome you here on behalf of the Ministry of Health of the Kyrgyz Republic. Welcome all the participants of the regional symposium on the issues of tuberculosis treatment in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Kyrgyz Republic is undertaking a lot of efforts to eradicate tuberculosis on the territory of the country by implementing and ensuring political support for all programs aimed at combating the spread of TB. For more than 20 years, the anti-TB service in the Kyrgyz Republic has been ensured by long-term comprehensive programs. At present, the activities of the Ministry of Health of the Kyrgyz Republic, TB service, primary health care, under the intersectoral cooperation and the involvement of international organizations, is aimed at the implementation of national TB programs. Epidemiological situation with TB in Kyrgyzstan, despite the declining trend for both prevalence and mortality, is still tense. The mortality and morbidity indicators remain high. The reduction of the morbidity and the mortality rates of TB have been accomplished thanks to the implementation of anti-TB programs and the activities in the Kyrgyz Republic. Thus, in 2017, the Ministry of Health of the Kyrgyz Republic prepared a set of laws in the Kyrgyz Republic on amending the laws of the Kyrgyz Republic on the protection of the population from the TB, that includes offering healthcare assistance to foreign citizens in TB services of the Kyrgyz Republic. National TB program TB5 has been approved for 2017-2021, which is a logical continuation of the previously implemented TB programs. It is developed on the basis of the current legislation, taking into account the state-of-the-art recommendations of the World Health Organization aimed at ensuring quality TB service in the country. In accordance with the approved national program TB5, the state undertakes the responsibility to ensure full-fledged and equal access to the services on diagnosis of treatment of TB for all persons with suspected TB and TB patients on the territory of the Kyrgyz Republic. One of the priorities of the program is active involvement of the civil society as an important partner in the area of planning and implementation of TB activities in the country, as well as improving the interaction with the civil society organizations to make sure that we can more effectively utilize the existing resources to fight TB. Over the last few years, as a result of the optimization underway in the country in the area of TB service, this area has been characterized with undoubtedly positive changes, including new mechanisms for the financing financing of the TB service. Kyrgyz Republic has already accumulated experience in the application of new TB drugs and the implementation of new treatment modalities. This scientific forum has gathered together regional and international experts and provides opportunities to countries across the region, including the Kyrgyz Republic, to share their experience in the implementation of new approaches and models for the treatment of this disease. This year, in the center of our discussion, we have accomplishments in the area of diagnosis, treatment-oriented treatment, as well as new treatment modalities, clinical studies, and the mechanisms of financing of TB activities. I'm confident that these 2 days will be filled with fruitful deliberations, and they will be instrumental in us making important strides towards fighting TB in this region. Thank you for your attention.
Let me invite Ms. Christine Jamet, Director of Operations of MSF.
Dear colleague, dear honorable guest, it was in December 2012, 5 years ago, when we assembled in Bishkek for the second TB symposium for Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Now we are back, and I can help to reflect on the history of this event that has evolved into one with more advanced program, presentation, and guests from all over the region. It is one of the most anticipated TB events in the region. This is the second time that this symposium is hosted in Bishkek. For this, I wish to thank His Excellency, Deputy Minister of Health, and all colleagues for continuous support and collaboration with our MSF team in Kyrgyzstan. This collaboration started with our first TB project in the penitentiary system in 2006 and continued in 2012 with the DRTB model project in Karasu. It is indeed a collaboration that MSF acknowledges as a success story and which we point to when talking in other contexts where we work globally. Thank you for that. The last time I was in Kyrgyzstan, I remember meeting with colleagues, and we emphasized 3 main topics in the field of TB. The first one was ambulatory care of TB patients. The second was comprehensive package for patients that include treatment of comorbidities, side effects, and psychological support. And the last one was the use of new drug, an idea that sounded revolutionary and daring at that time. I'm thrilled to see how far we have gone together and excel in achieving the objective we set. That is to deliver affordable, accessible TB diagnostic and care for all. The ambulatory model of care at primary level and the optimization of TB care has been a burning issue in the region. It has been achieved, and we will hear about it during the coming 2 days of this symposium. Despite many difficulties, be they financial or social, there are wider services available for patients today. Improved diagnostic and treatment are closer to patients. Indeed, much has been done to reach out to patients. The work of every nurse, every doctor, every social worker, every health administrator need to be acknowledged. However, I would dare to shift the emphasis and discourse on the topic ahead of us. Even so, there is a drop in number of patients diagnosed with drug-sensitive TB. There is urgency to tackle drug-resistant TB. We need to work hard and we need to work smart for positive change. There is a limit to what we can achieve with the treatment we provide for DRTB patients. We must speak loud and clear that 50% cure rates that we achieve globally is not enough. This means every second patient who starts treatment is not cured at discharge. We need to scale up the use of new drugs. Clinical trials for short regimens are essential to catch up with time. As Nelson Mandela once said, it is not just about what we do, but also about what we prevent. And I could not agree more. I would add that treatment of every new TB patient is not only about saving a life today, it is about the impact we have on public health. MSF in Eastern Europe and Central Asia and globally is committed to prioritize TB and integrate TB care as widely as possible in all our medical operations. In 2006 alone, MSF treated over 15,000 patients in 52 countries. Around 1,300 patients started the TB treatment. MSF considered to be one of the most important operational TB priority. Being not TB specialized organization, we are aiming to treat TB patients in all our projects, regardless of their initial orientation. We believe that it is a fundamental right of each and every patient to get quality treatment in all settings. We are proud to be a catalyst for change, piloting new diagnostic tools, new approach for treatment, new regimen. I think it is not enough to mention our study in short standardized regimen, which bring a lot of evidence about safety of this scheme. Now we are looking for ways to shorten the TB treatment for all kinds of patients, regardless of their resistance profile, with new regimen based on combination of new drugs. Last but not least, children are vulnerable to conflict, to disease, and unfortunately, they remain vulnerable because those who develop diagnostic tool and treatment overlook them due to various reasons, but not really ethically justified. Today, I wish to use this platform to voice the need to strive to improve pediatric TB treatment. We owe it to the next generation. We owe it to our children. We do not have the voice and power to be of interest for those who seek profit to deliver health care. I am sure the today's symposium will challenge what we know and make us reflect on how we can deliver better care for all our patients and how we can improve in what we do. Rahmat.
Now I would like to invite Dr. Kadyrov, Director of National TB Program. Thank you.
So, good morning, dear guests, dear colleagues. I'm very happy to welcome all the participants of our today's symposium on behalf of the National TB Program of the Kyrgyz Republic. I'm confident that this symposium will become a wonderful opportunity for us all to learn something new and to share experience with each other. Dear colleagues, you know perfectly well that in September of last year, here in Bishkek, we hosted the second international conference on integrated TB control for Central Asian countries. This symposium is the second such event conducted within the period of 1 year, and this underlines the fact that Kyrgyzstan is strongly committed to the fight against TB. The first regional symposium on the issues of tuberculosis took place in the city of Tashkent in 2011. Thanks to the support of Medicines Sans Frontiers, this symposium is already the 7th symposium. And after the symposiums in the cities of Bishkek, Dushanbe, Yerevan, Tbilisi, and Minsk. In the center of our discussions at the previous symposiums, we've always had issues pertaining to the treatment of patients, decentralization of TB diagnosis, outpatient treatment, and the use of new TB drugs. This symposium will not be an exception to that rule. So, what are we expecting from this 7th symposium on the issues of TB? What is the difference between this symposium and the previous ones? Thanks to the preliminary results of various studies, every year we obtain new evidence. At the symposium this year, we will hear preliminary findings of the studies of TB, which has been conducted in 15 countries around the globe. This data pertains to the efficiency and efficacy of individual regimens of treatment, preliminary results of the testing of short-term regimens, their drawbacks and their program execution. We will also hear about the course of clinical studies on the application of shorter 6 to 9 month treatment regimens, including new TB drugs. And finally, we will learn about the state-of-the-art diagnosis methodologies and technologies with the scientific justification of their application and the opportunities for further programmatic implementation. Some of these studies have already been reported on in Mexico at the Union Conference on the Fight Against TB. With the appearance of new data, we improve the experience of the countries in the application of new TB drugs, as well as new shorter treatment regimens. At the fourth session of day 2, we will hear about the experience in the application of short-term treatment regimens in Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Russia. One session will be devoted to the importance of patient-centered approaches. This session will be conducted by your colleagues from the TB departments from the headquarters and the European region, the WHO European office. The representative of the Ministry of Health of Kyrgyzstan will tell in his presentation about how these recommendations are being implemented in real life. Then that will be followed by the session on comorbidities among TB patients that will show some of the experience of various projects in this area. Also, certain recently published official statements will be presented. Dr. Teresa Kasaeva will present the declaration based on the results of the ministerial conference that took place in November 2017 in Moscow, as well as other topical information on the work which has been carried out based on the results of that conference as follow-up at the global and regional levels. Also, MSF, also in conclusion of the symposium, MSF will articulate the main issues and points pertaining to the intentions of MSF to be involved in the fight against tuberculosis in the years to come. And finally, we will have opportunities to learn about such international donors as USAID and the Global Fund. They will tell us their latest information about their strategic plans and the future funding for the region. Dear participants, dear delegates, this year at this symposium we have participants and delegations from different levels. Directorate authorities have delegated representatives of the Ministries of Health to the symposium, as well as heads and representatives of national TB programs of the 10 countries in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, including Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Georgia, Armenia, Ukraine, Belarus, Azerbaijan, and Kyrgyzstan. The partners that offer assistance to the leadership in supporting the national programs are represented by our honorable guests from the Department of TB from the headquarters and the European WHO office, representatives of the Global Fund, MSF, USAID, the Fund against TB from KNCB, other projects as well as Partnership for Health, and the representatives of the academia. We also have representatives of doctors. We have healthcare professionals that are dealing with the patients in their day-to-day work, including international and national healthcare professionals and representatives of various projects from various countries. And finally, the symposium will also involve very active participation of the patients and activists in the TB area. The involvement of these patients will be ensured throughout the symposium. We will see a lot of video materials from the patients and various countries, as well as projects that will tell us about their experience, and we will be able to view the TB treatment from the point of view of the patients through their eyes. We will also listen to the statements of TB activists. Furthermore, outside in the hall, we will have a photo exhibition, and throughout the symposium, We will also be provided with plenty of other opportunities to communicate and socialize with the activists and patients. Dear colleagues, I wish that these 2 days will be filled with very interesting and informative discussions. Thank you.
Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, it's my pleasure to address you via this video message on the occasion of the 7th Tuberculosis Symposium for Eastern Europe and Central Asia in Bishkek. Please allow me to speak further in Russian. Глубоко уважаемая госпожа вице-премьер-министр Республики Кыргызстан, глубоко уважаемый господин заместитель министра здравоохранения Республики Кыргызстан, уважаемый глава миссии «Врачи без границ», дамы и господа, участники 7-го симпозиума по вопросам лечения туберкулеза в Восточной Европе и Центральной Азии. Позвольте поприветствовать вас от имени глобальной программы по туберкулезу Всемирной организации здравоохранения и выразить благодарность правительству Республики Кыргызстан
and express gratitude to the government of the Kyrgyz Republic and for the many-year partner of WHO and Médecins Sans Frontières for organization and conduct of this event. TB is one of the most important and dangerous disease, taking more than 2 million lives annually worldwide. More than 10 million people get infected per year with the TB. The crisis with the TB, with the multi-drug resistance, continues, unfortunately. This all brings to the point that current investments and activities are not enough to reach proper indicators. Strategy of TB set up by the international programs and the Millennium and Sustainable Development Goals. It's obvious that in order to stabilize and work further on the TB, more activities and prevention methods should be conducted with the support of, at the level of the governments of the countries. As you are aware, quite important events have taken place in Moscow, the first global WHO conference on liquidation of TB and sustainable development. The goal was to unify efforts of WHO offices worldwide to liquidate TB by 2030 through intersectoral multidisciplinary approach within the sustainable development efforts. The conference have become very important point and on to implement General Assembly, UN General Assembly decision, and in the eve of a new General Assembly that all of us very expecting. More than 1,000 representatives from more than 120 countries, including 80 ministers of health from and representatives of other sectors of economy were presented. UN agencies, international organizations, civil society and patient groups and organizations have been presented. Different funds, businesses, academical circles, parliamentaries, politicians, and other people that have come to Moscow to discuss the problem and find the ways of its further and quicker solution. General Director of WHO, Dr. Tedros, have symbolically opened the conference in a format of dialogue with activists, with civil society representatives and patient organizations representatives who are aware about the problem of people directly facing the TB issues. International response and attention was brought to the President of the Russian Federation, Mr. Putin, presentation, and Ms. Naham from UN. Also, Mr. Miroslav Rajcik have also turned to the conference participants. One of the outcomes of the conference was the signing of the Moscow Declaration with commitment of countries and the call to the WHO and the partners to enhance and accelerate efforts on TB and start acting on development progress to enriching sustainable development goals with the coverage of health services through the strengthening of health systems and increasing access to services oriented on people with treatment and care to all people, that no one will be left without attention. Also, the call was to ensure proper funding, especially TB activities, through increase of internal and international investments into the program to liquidate deficit of funds in the implementation of programs, and also to conduct more research and studies, scientific studies. Another item was the call to consolidate efforts, and especially in diagnostics of new drugs, new instrument of diagnostics and treatment. Multi-sectoral system, or as we call it, mechanism of reporting and has an importance of which have been discussed at the conference was separately noted. It was also noted that all activities should be conducted with active participation of non-governmental and public organizations and civil society organizations. It was expressed that it is necessary to undertake urgent efforts to combat TB, especially multi and drug-resistant TB. In January this year, the Executive Committee of WHO have supported a resolution on the preparation of a high-level summit of General Assembly of UN, which greets Moscow Declaration and gives the order to General Director of WHO to develop, together with international, regional, and national partners, a draft new sectoral program of accountability to meet the Moscow Declaration calls. The mechanism should ensure the monitoring and would allow to conduct comprehensive analysis and take necessary and urgent measures in liquidation of TB, both at global and at the national levels, especially in the countries with a high level of TB burden. The global TB program of WHO, with the support of its partners and international donor community, have already started developing new draft mechanism to be discussed at the 71st Assembly of Health Assembly in May this year. It is supposed that the multi-sectoral system of accountability will be presented at a high-level meeting of UN General Assembly on TB with the purpose of political mobilization of political support at the level of countries. The mechanism is subject to approval at UN General Assembly in May this year. Dear friends, I would like to note with high satisfaction that activities and events at the Moscow conference, its declaration and activities thereof are already conducted, both at regional and national levels. With the support of regional WHO office, its partners, some activities from that mentioned declaration already being implemented and also are reflected in the national TB programs. In mid-March in New Delhi, a big summit will be taking place in India for the ministers and deputy ministers of health of Southeast Asia, which takes on the Moscow activity. And this conference will discuss the urgent measures to change paradigm with the situation of TB in the region and to work on what have been agreed in Moscow. WHO together with Stop TB Partnership and with other partners, is planning wide-scale information campaign with the slogan "We are looking for leaders." So the campaign will take place in different level forums in Geneva, in regional country offices in UN and New York, to attract attention of all involved parties to address this very important program of contemporary world. The General UN Assembly, actually, this is actually the topical recent information. In Japan, Antigua and Barbuda have been appointed to facilitate high-level meeting on TB, which is to be taking place this year. The country's facilitators are conducting quite substantial work together with resident offices, with other countries, with the UN in New York on the modality of the upcoming event, which will define in terms, the format of the meeting, and announce the draft outcome document that what will be discussed. The high-level meeting will be preceded by preliminary hearings and with participation of all involved parties, primarily representatives of non-governmental and patient organizations, civil society. One of key roles in combating TB would be definitely and should be given to the civil society. In this regard, the General Director of WHO have forwarded letters towards all regional offices and country offices with a call to actively involve civil society representatives into their activities on TB at all levels, and also have noted a very important item to involve activists and civil society representatives to include inter-country delegations for the meetings and discussions in New York. So preparation of the high-level meeting of UN is currently undergoing in its full pace, and we hope that it will attract attention from the governments, especially from those countries with high burden of TB. And we'll hope that will help to unify joint efforts of all partners. Dear friends, thank you for your attention. I would like to wish all of us a fruitful, successful work, not only in these upcoming 2 days, but throughout the whole time to fight TB, because jointly we can win and end TB.
Ksenia? Let me give the floor to Ksenia Shenina from TB People. Thank you.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Ксюша Щенина, я представляю
Good
TB
morning.
People.
I'm Ksenia Shenina, TB People. Well, TB is a tuberculosis. People are people, the humans. I hope it's clear. Okay, raise your hands. Who had TB? Who is brave enough to say that? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Okay, this is just only a small part of the whole, so we have to tell you a lot then today. Okay, could you please? I will now start scaring you with the next slide. On the next slide, you can see this nice girl with a sign with a badge. I had TB. Actually, Paulina. Paulina will be several times mentioned in our discussion. Okay, personal experience. Now it's 2018, and this is already 12 years since I got sick with TB. I got in the hospital on summer when I came visit my parents during holidays. I was studying in Moscow, lived in the Far East, which is 8,000 kilometers away from Moscow, and I was scared to go to doctors, and I heard a lot of scary stories that if I go to doctors, they could, take my passport away, and I didn't do any X-ray for quite a bit of time. So when I finally got into the X-ray, I saw that there were several holes in my lumps, the so-called calcinated, holes, so that the drugs couldn't get into there. So I had the operation, resection, thoracoplastics, and other things, quite scary ones. So it took me half year to learn how to walk, work with my hand and try to pick me up with the spine damaged. So I was a good patient, so they would allow me to go back home overnight, but it wasn't actually a case when people would allow to treat an outpatient patient, even if you're adherent enough. But in hospital, it was better for me than at home, because at home people wouldn't understand what really happens to me and what I have to survive. Of course, there has been a lot of fear, black humor, and fear again. And I didn't see many of their reliable information. I was going to internet, Russian-speaking internet. Not much was available. And as journalists, I decided that we need to create such information. So, since 2008, I was doing a blog on the internet. I was describing myself. Then I made a professional blog on TB. Then I thought it's too little. Then I created a support group with 1,700 persons now in the group, with all TB patients, and we're all connected. Okay, what is a patient organization? Okay, I won't read out from the slide. I hope that you can read it out yourself. But in general, patient or community organization involve people who are not only don't want to be passive participants only. Because if people learn they can be active, they can do something, they have a lot of energy. And actually, if you have a trauma in process of your treatment, or if your child is sick, or you got infected your child, or you have a problem with your doctor, and you have no treatment for yourself, these are quite strong, stimulus to do something. People who inspire me. I hope you saw the film How to Survive a Plague. This is a film about activists, about the people who live with HIV. At the beginning of the film is describing 1987, when HIV was not treated, actually was not agreed that it exists. Now it's 2018, and we are in a quite similar situation to that time. We do have multi-drug resistance that kills people. Not many people talk about that. We have drugs, but drugs are not fully available or accessible in most of the countries of the world. Now, why TB patients are different? It has been said that out of patients who have had TB, people say that it's difficult to make a community of these people. Well, my experience is opposing it. Persons with TB try to get treated, get cured, and forget about the whole problem. In fact, in Russian-speaking community in Russia, the stigma is still quite high. If you get sick, you don't talk much about that. I didn't think that TB is just is out there. It was with some great Russian authors 100 years ago, and that was it. But by that, when I got sick, I started writing about that. People started writing to me in return, and not only discussing that people are afraid that we will be fired or not employed, but a lot of people started getting to me, like relatives, grandmas, and everyone would come up with their traditional recipes about with a different type of animal fat, like dog meat or something that's other uh, and it turned out that a lot of people know about that, but there is still a stigma. why is the stigma so strong? All 3 points on the slide is something I faced with personally. A low level of education, no awareness, way you talk to a doctor. I mean, my first discussion with X-ray doctor was that she actually told me that my lumps, already get rotting, and I'm a criminal because I, infect other people. And that was a whole kick to me that no, not to talk to doctors. Of course, it's not the case. No, I know, but in some places, this is could be the case. Actually, support provided is quite often is not enough. People who talk to me, they say that they learn about the diagnosis, especially with the drug-resistant TB. And I'm talking to people 2 or 3 years, and we keep talking to them, and people get some relapse. In panical condition, people write to me. We can talk about his fear, and it's something that people should get in an inpatient facility with psychology, but it's not always available or it's not always working. It's good that there are networks and TB patient support now. When I started, I had a feeling I'm surrounded by walls, and I'm trying to break through the walls, and it's like several walls, and I was alone. But one guy, Timur Abdullayev, activist from quite active activist from Uzbekistan, found me. He said that I'm not alone. There are a lot of us like that. We met in Bratislava in the year 2016, and we decided that we need to unite our efforts, help each other, and make a big network. This is a photograph from our second meeting that took place last year in Tbilisi, Georgia. So there are people from 18 countries here, all of them with TB, and all of them pay a lot of efforts to decrease the burden of TB in their countries. And this made my work easier because people now talk to me not only from Russia, and if I didn't know what to do with the patient, now I have the chance to refer this patient to where they can get treatment and have this chain, of support. Okay, our vision and mission are pretty straightforward. World free of TB, and what we need to do for that. Unite people in trying to fight against the disease. If you look at our logo, you see the people. It has this, a metal thing that, using F word, getting, killing this damn TB. Why community organizations are needed? Patients will be the first ones that face with a problem. A lot of problems they will have to deal with, and quite often they won't talk to a doctor about that. Quite often patients will be too shy to talk about sexual problems, or will be scared to tell about other concerns or side effects, that thinking that this is not very important, or afraid of talking to a doctor. But only person that have come through that can tell him, okay, hold on a second, this is side effect, that's something you have to talk to a doctor. Cycloserine, for example, side effects and other things. We can track things like a lack of drugs, because some people are getting afraid that if drugs are not available, they can go try to buy them themselves, and they can get a bad quality ones. So since there are a lot of people that have passed and faced TB problems, and they it's no one can explain to the peer guy with a, for example, drug addict or alcoholic, or the person with other problem, about how important that is, and people will listen to them. And also, it is important to tell how it is important to talk to a doctor. And sometimes a doctor's work is not enough. They don't have enough time to treat. They have a lot of time to be spent on filling paperwork. There are some problems that we're trying to struggle with. Polina, the artist, I brought the exhibition that you will be able to see outside there. we made this for you. I'm talking to you, and I'm talking. I wrote that for the people I'm talking to, TB and you. Actually, it's like directly. I'm talking to patients like, hi, I know what you feel like, what you face, and actually everything is written here. We start from what the diagnosis is set up to what happens after. Quite often when you fight with disease, you're like on a war. You put all the efforts, all the resources, and you look like you succeed. You're very energetic. And now after that, patients, your relatives feel now you're okay, you're treated, you're free of that, but then a problem comes. This emotional thing comes in, and person don't understand here because person doesn't have any support from the hospital anymore. At home, everyone believes that he's okay, and then don't understand what the person should be happy after to be treated, but person is not happy, and no one knows why. The second thing is why is a book. How you change from passive patient to the activist. We write in the end. You have been treated. You have great, precious experience that other people don't have. Why don't we write about that to help other people? That still to overcome that. So on the coffee break, you'll be able to look at the books. There are three heroes. Paulina, an artist. She was quite powerful in joining activism. She was in a hospital for 6 months, and she wrote a picture of that big, of that size, 1 by 1 meter. Actually, she made it right in the ward of the TB hospital. And since some paints are harmful for your body, she had to use other type of paints. So Paulina was a great support to me, because not many people are willing to write about TB even if you write well, because these are things from the parallel world. No one cares. But pictures is something people look at. And when we created a brochure together, she was quite friendly, and in addition to my friendly language, she was friendly enough with her pictures. And the books now look as some children, books for children. So we took three heroes. So Paulina herself, and one guy we called Vladimir. In prison, we decided that it's good to have a name of a person to be described. And one woman from Central Asia. In Moscow, there are many migrants who come to work to Moscow from Central Asia, and many of them are sick. The brochure is a myth about TB, which we were asking people about, and try to ruin those myths so that to avoid, that myths existing and traveling among the patients, not changing much for many years. Well, I hope you haven't tired of me yet. Thank you very much. Now I will switch on the video and you will burst out crying. Paulina and her picture. Thank you very much.
Я никогда не думала, что это может со мной произойти. Но в мае 2015 года скорая забрала меня в больницу. И мне сказали: молись. И тогда я еще не подозревала, что следующие 6 месяцев я должна буду провести вместе, о существовании которого многие люди даже не подозревают. Всегда очень трудно принять эту действительность, где ты оказываешься неполноценным человеком. В России люди боятся говорить об этом вслух. И даже доктор сказал мне: не говори никому, потому что на тебя повесят клеймо. Мой диагноз – туберкулез. Это опасное инфекционное заболевание, которое до сих пор широко распространено в России. И если мы будем молчать об этом, проблема будет продолжать существовать.
Я Наташа, мне 32 года. Когда я узнала, что я болею, Моему старшему сыну еще не было 3 лет, а дочери года. А скоро мне предстоит операция.
Первое время я была шокирована в больнице, когда я увидела столько молодых людей, которые активные, занятые, красивые, талантливые. И они внезапно оказались в очень странном месте на неопределенный срок.
Меня зовут Георгий, мне 24 года, я лежу в больнице 6 месяцев.
Я Аня, мне 27 лет. Месяц назад я родила сына. Через 2 недели я узнала о том, что я заболела.
Меня зовут Жанна, мне 24 года. Я уже болею 9-й месяц, потому что у меня широкая устойчивость.
И так как я художник, я искала способ выразить себя. И я начала писать портреты этих людей. А позже я поняла, что я хочу сделать выставку, которая нарушит тишину о параллельном мире, где люди борются за свою жизнь.
Sharon Lynch from Access Campaign.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to be going through the findings from our report looking at TB policies in 8 countries in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. We heard a little bit from Dr. Teresa about the Global TB Ministerial Meeting that took place in November in Moscow. In that declaration, there was a commitment to implement WHO TB guidelines for testing, treatment, prevention, as well as drug regulatory issues. The countries we looked at, Armenia, Belarus, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, the Russian Federation, Tajikistan, and Ukraine. Although we looked at a number of different policies, for the purpose of this presentation, we will be focusing on testing, treatment, models of care, and the drug regulatory environment. It's important to recognize, although the title of the report is called Out of Step, that in fact most countries in the region that we looked at are in step with WHO guidelines, meaning they are in accordance. And it's also important to recognize the rapid growth of new tools, although we could certainly use more, in terms of innovations for treatment, short course regimen, newer TB drugs, as well as more effective diagnostic treatment algorithms, as well as the push, as you have heard many times here already, for more patient-centered models of care. So just to recognize that since 2011, there have been more than 18 new sets of guidance and guidelines from WHO. Still, we have a number of challenges in the region. So starting with the diagnostic gap, we know that nearly 46,000 people remain undiagnosed in the region, according to WHO Global TB Report 2016, reporting on 2015 data. Certainly, there are policies that can help. And here you see, according to our methodology, where we report on the adoption of guidelines with the green dot. If implementation has been widely adopted, then you'll see a solid dot. So I hope that comes through a bit. If there is a red dot in the country in the guideline, that means the policy has not been adopted. So we report on both adoption of WHO guidelines as well as the implementation. So here you see some good news in the sense that 6 out of 8 countries that we looked at in the region have adopted using GeneXpert as the initial diagnostic for all TB suspects. However, the bad news, and you'll see this over and over again, is there remains an implementation gap where, according to our research, again, looking up until May 2017, so it's likely that many of your countries have changed, have accelerated rollout, is that only 3 countries are implementing the policy widely. Looking at the other essential protocol that has been recommended by WHO is to provide first-line drug-sensitive testing for all RIF-resistant TB cases and DRTB suspects. So the good news is out of the 8 countries that we looked at, all had adopted the policy as part of their national guidelines. And most countries, 6 out of the 8, have been implementing the policy widely, again, as of May 2017. Looking at the third indicator, and there are more policies that we report on in the report, which you have with your packet, we looked at the availability and the adoption of providing second-line drug-sensitive testing for all RIF and MDR-TB cases. So we report on both first-line and second-line. Here, again, you see all countries in the region of the 8 that we looked at have adopted the policy. However, only 5 countries are implementing widely. Moving on to models of care, and obviously this is the main focus of this discussion, is where we see a lot of improvement over the years. So that has to be recognized in terms of making sure that treatment fits into people's lives and not the other way around. So certainly here, although there is a lot of improvement to be made, where drug-sensitive TB testing being provided at the primary healthcare level is only a matter of policy in 3 out of the 8 countries, and only 1, according to the respondents of our survey, which again, MSF teams, Stop TB partnership teams, and national TB programs, report that only 1 country is implementing the policy widely. Where we have seen a lot of dynamism in terms of countries adopting policy and making the change is especially in providing DRTB treatment at the secondary level. So whereas before it was only available at the national level, you see more countries have made a change and started to decentralize treatment. So here, 5 out of the 8 countries have adopted the policy. And again, as of May 2017, we report that only 2 countries have implemented the policy widely. Although this slide, there are many red dots here, but we all admit that there have been great improvements in terms of recommending hospitalization. Of course, there's a difference between smear positive versus smear negative, hospitalization in the intensive phase versus the continuation phase. So more improvement is, of course, needed. So 2 out of 8 countries, so I'm sorry, where you see a red dot, it's actually good news, because this is where countries do not require hospitalization. So it's the red dots in this case, very good news, and in the next slide. So please note, only 2 countries still require hospitalization for drug-sensitive testing. I'm sorry, for drug-sensitive TB. Now, of course, there is a case-by-case basis, and it's up to the clinicians, and of course, hopefully the patients in terms of whether hospitalization is required. Moving on to DRTB treatment, again, this is where we see the most improvement, and this has been commented in terms of comparing the very first and then the second TB symposia with MSF and NTPs in this country in 2012. So you have only 2 countries out of the 8 that still require hospitalization for DRTB treatment. So of course, this is on a patient-by-patient, case-by-case basis. But this is a great evolution in terms of adoption of WHO policies, and frankly, more importantly, as you know, making sure that we can implement patient-centered models of care. Moving on to TB and DRTB treatment, Just to note, in terms of at the end of 2015, there was still a treatment gap among people needing DRTB treatment of more than 46,000 people. So although the treatment gap here is smaller than globally, there is still a way to go. So looking at the guidelines coming from WHO, you see a lot of good news here on this slide in terms of countries adopting the bedaquiline guidance from WHO. Obviously, we'll be hearing more about this, but I want to note that in terms of the newer drugs, that is bedaquiline and dilaminid, still only 5% of people globally who could benefit from these drugs have access. In terms of dilaminid, there is still a lot of progress to be made still, given that 2 countries are implementing the policy widely, but at least 5 out of the 8, again, as of May 2017, have dilaminid in their guidelines. Moving on to short course, this is where, compared to the other 2 indicators, countries are the most behind in terms of 2 out of the 8 countries adopting the policy and no countries implementing the policy widely. It's important to note that some countries that face especially quite a high prevalence of DRTB, where they are looking at dropping the injectable from the short course regimen and replacing with bedaquiline, including for MDR-TB. Moving on to the drug regulatory issues, I just want to point out a few, or at least one, improvement in terms of national policies. So we find that of the 8 countries that we looked at, 4 out of the 8 countries were enrolled in the WHO collaborative registration procedure. This is what WHO and countries have made a formal agreement to facilitate registration of drugs. So we know in this region where Johnson & Johnson have not registered bedaquiline or where Otsuka has not registered dilaminid, countries need to work harder in terms of getting the drug into countries and into bodies. At least the WHO, the collaborative registration procedure, can remove the drug companies from that equation and rely on using the dossier that has been submitted to the WHO pre-qualification project, with the understanding that if WHO provides national drug regulatory authorities the dossier, that then countries will commit to rapid registration and review of that dossier within 90 days. So again, it's taking companies out of the equation so that we don't have to justify the fact that we need their drugs into market, and instead making an arrangement between WHO and national countries. So here we have 4 out of the 8 countries have enrolled in the WHO CRP. I just want to note, in terms of how the region compares with 29 countries, is that you see that more countries have in this region taken up bedaquiline as part of national policy, reflecting WHO guidelines, dilaminid. We also have a lot of improvement in this region, more so than we see globally in the 29 countries that we have looked at, that the countries enrolled in WHO collaborative registration procedure. We also have more countries in this region than globally who allow for rapid registration of DRTB drugs, and whose essential medicines list reflect that of WHO. I want to thank the national TB programs who participated in the survey, our partners at Stop TB Partnership, and of course the MSF teams. Thank you very much.